Karlov of the Ghost Council, Niv Mizzet Parun, and Savra, Queen of the Golgari. 3 different commanders that you might pull from Ravnica Remastered that have some sweet new treatments, and you're going to want to build commander decks out of these. Each one of these commanders can be powerful, and they can all be built in completely different ways because there are 3 ways to build most commander decks. Strong, fun, and mean. Let's take a look at the strong, fun, and mean commanders that I would build from Ravnica Remastered.
Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat.
One of my goals this year is to bring you one of these deck tech videos every single Saturday, so hit that subscribe button to keep me honest, and let me know in the comments if there's a commander or a strategy or a set or a plane, whatever, that you want to see 3 different builds from, and I'll try to get to it. Huge shout out to our channel sponsors: Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards; TCG Player, the official store online of Jake and Joel or Magic; Dragon Shield, the best sleeves in the entire multiverse; and Moxfield, the best place to keep your deck lists online. Let's jump into this. For the strong build, I want to go with Karlov of the Ghost Council. It's a Spirit Advisor 2/2 for a black and a white that says whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Karlov of the Ghost Council. Then you can pay a black and a white and remove 6 +1/+1 counters from Karlov of the Ghost Council to exile target creature straight up. We are looking at life gain and +1/+1 counter strategies. Orzhov can do this. This commander being 2 mana also means that it comes down and gets to work ASAP. Get Karlov onto the board, start gaining life, start putting counters on it, start spreading the counters around your line. You're attacking, you can get in Karlov for a huge swing, or you just have this backup plan of any creature I don't like, I'm gonna exile for just 2 mana and 6 +1 counters. Looking for inspiration on this build? Obviously you want to build a lot of creatures in here like Soul Warden. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. These are just passive triggers of life gain that are going to help you put more and more counters on Karlov of the Ghost Council. With Karlov, we're not necessarily trying to gain enormous chunks of life all at once because that triggered ability happens however much life we gain. So if we lean on a bunch of effects that are gaining us 1 life at a time, it's seeing a bunch of different triggers, and Karlov is just getting loaded up. Authority of the Councils is the same kind of thing. It contributes to this a lot of tiny life gain triggers, plus it's just absolute value. I don't know if you've ever played this card, but Authority of the Councils always surprises me. It's not a card I'm ever super excited about, but when you play it, it just puts this pressure on the board for our opponents the rest of the game that they have to figure out how to work around. Aetherflux Reservoir for a finisher here. This is one of the, you cast a spell, you gain 1 life, you get a little tiny life gain trigger over and over, and then if we get to 50 life, which we will, you can just pay 50 life and deal 50 damage to a creature or player, which is probably where you want to aim it, and knock out an opponent altogether. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 5/5 white horse creature token, and Crested Sunmare makes them all indestructible. This is the coolest kind of payoff that you can look for in this deck. Just sort of a side strategy that can lean on all of the synergies that the rest of our deck is trying to do, but become its own standalone threat that must be answered, or you're just going to continue to pump indestructible 5/5 horses onto the battlefield. But let's get spiky. Let's run Heliod Suncrowned. 3 mana for a 5/5 god says indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, it isn't a creature, so it can't be removed with stuff that says destroy target creature. It can't be removed with anything that says destroy because it's got indestructible regardless. It must be exiled. This card is insane. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. That sounds familiar. It's redundancy on our commander's effect. We can put more counters on our commander with this, or just get the counters spreading around our entire line and really start to get out of range of damage-based removal, of blocking to kill our stuff. And then we can also give a creature lifelink for just 2 mana at will, as much as we've got mana for, so that we can gain even more life, get even more triggers, and continue the fun. I like Cleric Class. It's got a lot built in. For 1 white mana, you're going to get, if you would gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead. It doesn't really help our strategy other than just winning more a little bit, but as we continue down, we can pay 4 and upgrade it to level 2. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That sounds familiar. Redundancy on our commander's effect. If you're new to building in Commander, you want to try and find as many cards a lot of times that have redundancy to your commander's effect, if that's what you're focused on building around, and at least consider them for the deck. Then Cleric Class, pay 5 to get it up to level 3. When this class becomes level 3, you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you gain life equal to its toughness. So you see, it just kind of does it all. We get this onto the battlefield, we level it up to level 2, and then we just let it sit there, and we wait. And we wait for the opportune moment, or that creature that they finally answered. Let's get the Crested Sunmare back onto the battlefield. You were able to answer it. We'll bring it back. Now all of the horse tokens, if there were any left, all have indestructible. We're back ready to rock and roll. Cleric Class can absolutely help you. Also, Light of Promise. This can go on your commander. Pay 3, enchant creature with this aura. Enchanted creature has, whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature. That is what I'm talking about. This is the opposite kind of life gain. With our commander, it's looking for 1 life here, 1 life there, individual life gain triggers. Light of Promise says, give me you're tired, you're weak, you're hungry. I want them all. I'm turning all of the life gain into all of the +1/+1 counters. And I just want to remind you, commander damage is still a thing in this game. They haven't taken that rule out. I know nobody really plays with it anymore, but in a pinch, if you can get 20 +1/+1 counters on Karlov, that's only 10 life gain triggers. If you're not doing anything else, like Light of Promise, Karlov himself can get up to 22 power and one-shot somebody if you absolutely need to. So let's just run Rogue's Passage in here. This could be a backdoor commander damage plan with this deck. I mean, I think that's another way that you could win. Number 1 way to win is gain so much life that you tilt your opponents out and they quit. Number 2 is drain them all out with a bunch of like aristocrat style stuff. Use stuff like Aetherflux Reservoir, Crested Sunmare, grow your line enormously and then attack them down. Or screw it, 22 damage through the Rogue's Passage. Thank you, Karlov, for taking care of business. Appreciate when you get business done yourself. Test of Endurance, you want another win con? Here you go. You want to make your opponents roll their eyes? Here you go. Drop Test of Endurance, say, okay, you've got till my upkeep to get my life below 50 or answer this enchantment, or I win. Niv Mizzet Parun is a classic commander, but a lot of you may be pulling this for the first time in this set, and I want you to be prepared to build this deck. 3 red, 3 blue for a 5/5 dragon wizard that says it can't be countered. It's got flying, and it says whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet deals 1 damage to any target, and whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, including yourself, you draw a card. So you can see how this little synergistic loop can happen just with our commander, and there's a lot of cards that can complement these strategies and make it hard for our opponents to deal with. Let's start with Curiosity. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Niv Mizzet says whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet deals a damage. That has this enchanted. If you've got Curiosity on Niv Mizzet, whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card. Bing, bang, boom. As long as we've got more library left than there is life total in our opponent's life totals, I think I'm saying that right, then you can just loop it out right there. Curiosity is just a great 2-card combo with Niv Mizzet. Win the game right there. Pretty much kill anything. As long as you can get some damage rocking and rolling, this loop will start to happen. And because it says you may draw a card, you can stop it at any point. Also just want to mention that Ophidian Eye, 3 mana, does the exact same thing. And it's got flash, so whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you can draw a card. You can pop this on at instant speed in response to some junk and absolutely get nuts with it. This is the kind of deck that we want to reduce the cost of our instants and sorceries, because I think we want to go spell casting with this. We're playing Izzet. Let's play with some lightning and some fire. What's more fun than lightning and fire? Goblin Electromancer is going to help you. This is printed in every precon that's these colors, basically. You just need to have stuff like this in there. Because you're in red and blue, you need some mana rocks. You want some mana reducers like that. And you want some effects like this. Gutter Snipe says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Booyah. Gutter Snipe is going to sit there and passively get a ton of value by shooting your opponents for a shock, 2 damage, every single time you cast an instant or sorcery. With Niv Mizzet, as we're casting, we're drawing cards, we're able to just storm through our deck and really keep our hand full, keeping us casting spells and keeping Gutter Snipe popping off. Also want to mention, Niv Mizzet deals the damage. Basilisk Collar gives Niv Mizzet Death Touch. If Niv Mizzet shoots 1 damage with Death Touch at a creature, it dies. Do with that information what you will. Put Basilisk Collar in the deck, though. You definitely need to. City on Fire. It's got Convoke. I know it's expensive, but look, it's got Convoke, and you can help cast it with your creatures. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. This is just the kind of big, fun, splashy enchantment that I want to slam down in this deck so that every time Niv Mizzet triggers, we're shooting lightning bolts, 3 damage at wherever we want it to fire. That's just beautiful. That's exactly where I want to be living. I also really love Flame of Anor because look, Niv Mizzet is a wizard, and Flame says choose 1. If you control a wizard as you cast the spell, you can choose 2. I love taking advantage of our commander's creature types index, where it's maybe not our entire strategy, but because our commander's a certain creature type, we can take advantage of spells like this. Let's choose 2 for 3 mana at instant speed. Target player draws 2 cards. We'll choose ourselves. Destroy target artifact. Okay. Or deals 5 damage to target creature. Love that. We get all of the value with Niv Mizzet. Also, casting spells, drawing cards off of this spell. Just a ton of value represented here on 3 mana instant speed. And it represents looking for wizard spells, good wizard archetype stuff that might go alongside Niv Mizzet without needing to fully lean into that deck. Like Harmonic Prodigy, 2 mana, 1/3 prowess. Don't care about any of that so much, but we love this ability. If an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So all of our Niv Mizzet triggers, we're getting doubles. It's just absolutely ridiculous if you can slam Harmonic Prodigy and then get some work rolling with Niv Mizzet's triggered abilities. Look, you're going to want to run some counterspells in this. You're going to want to run a little bit of control. You don't have to run a huge counterspell package. Just kind of protect your little mission over there so that you can storm off and go crazy. And look for stuff. Look for spells that's going to have draw a card tacked onto it. Just because you're going to get extra value off of that because you're playing Niv Mizzet, right? Niv Mizzet says whenever you draw a card, whenever that is happening, we want to play spells that are also letting us do that. So we run cards like Arcane Denial because we'll get a little extra value. I want to wrap it up with Savra, Queen of the Golgari, a green, a black, and 2 for a 2/2 elf shaman. Whenever you sacrifice a black creature, you may pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacks a creature. Whenever you sacrifice a green creature, you may gain 2 life. So you see how those synergize with each other. Sacrifice a black and green creature, now you're not losing or gaining any life, and everybody else has to sacrifice a creature. Savra represents everything I love about the Golgaris. This is where we want to live with this black-green Reanimator Aristocrats build. Savra's going to get you there. Plus, we got new sweet art on Savra and the special versions, just like we've got with all the other commanders. Creekwood Liege represents what we want to be trying to do with this deck. It's black and green, 4 mana. 2/2 says other black creatures you control get +1/+1. Great. Other green creatures you control get +1/+1. Fine. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a 1/1 black and green worm creature token. Baby! That's what we're talking about. Now we can sacrifice those tokens, and with Savra's ability, we're going to be forcing everybody else to sacrifice creatures, and we're not going to be losing any life at all. Love this little bit of a Grave Pact, which we'll go over on our commander right out of the command zone. This is a newer card from the Jurassic Park set, and there's so many cards coming out nowadays that I think you might have missed this one. A green, a black, and 1 for a 2/2 dinosaur. It says at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, create a tapped token that's a copy of Compy Swarm. Compy Swarm doesn't care if a creature died this turn that is non-token or token. It doesn't care. It's just looking for a creature that died. So if we can get a creature that died, we create the token with Compy Swarm. From then on, the token of Compy Swarm can be what we sacrifice. We'll have our main Compy Swarm see, oh, a creature died this turn. Let's create another tap token that's a copy of Compy Swarm. You see what I'm saying? And we'll get more and more value off of this little token generator here. Love this dinosaur. I think that it absolutely belongs in this deck. Sometimes we're going to be sacrificing not just black and green creatures. Sometimes they're going to be just black creatures, sometimes just green, and we'll be gaining life, losing life. But with Dina, when we're gaining life, each opponent's also losing a life. This is the sort of stuff you want to put in this deck. You've got an aristocrat strategy happening. You want to gain and you want to drain. You want to make them sacrifice. This is a very sort of mid-rangey feel commander deck that'll just grind value over the course of an entire game. Also gives you a sacrifice outlet tied into it. It is 1 mana to sacrifice, but who cares? It's another sack outlet because Savra doesn't come with that built into the commander version itself, we've got to find other cards to get that going. I also love to look at the Strixhaven cards for this deck because pests are black and green tokens. 10 the pests as an additional cost to cast this, sack a creature, that's perfect for us. Create X 1/1 black and green pest creature tokens with, when this creature dies you gain 1 life, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. So if something's gonna die, or we need a lot of 1/1s, or we just want to get nuts with it, we can sack it, instant speed, create a bunch of pests that are all black and green and are going to play well alongside the Queen of the Golgari. Now, I told you we were going to talk about Grave Pact. Look at this. Whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Earlier in the video, I was talking about redundancy on your commander's effects. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Our entire strategy is built around sacrificing stuff to control our opponent's board, keep our side of the board a little more built up so we can get some attacks in. And as we're having stuff die, sacrificing things, we're gaining, we're draining, we're rocking and rolling. So if our commander's just getting answered a bunch, you're not going to really be able to get rolling with your strategy. Redundancy cards like Grave Pact are going to help you do that. You've also got Dictate of Erebos. This is a very similar card. Just redundancy on that commander effect. Since we're building around it a little bit, find some cards that are similar. And I've been talking about gain and drain. There is a lot of black and green aristocrats pieces. That means whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. That strategy is typically called aristocrats. That's how people refer to it. And that just refers to stuff on your side dying, creature tokens more often than not. And that causing each opponent to be drained for like 1, for like 2. Or whenever we gain life, they all lose that much life. Or whenever they lose life, we gain that much life. That's the kind of strategy that we want to build around Savra so that everything's just kind of synergizing together. Poison Tip Archer is a fantastic card in black and green to do that. Also, you need sack outlets. That's what I was talking about with Dina, but that one costs 1. Viscera Seer, budget, and doesn't cost anything. Just sack a creature, scry 1. We don't care too much about that scry 1. We will definitely use it whenever we can, but sacrifice a creature at instant speed for no cost. There's a lot of tricky stuff we can do with that ability when we've got our little engine, our little value sacrificial engine rolling. We're going to need cards like Viscera Seer for a budget. Look at Altars for like a bling version of that. Lich Knight's Conquest, a newer card from Wilds of Eldraine, 5 mana. Sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, or tokens. You know that's a good thing in our deck. Return that many creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So we're wiping a bunch of pests off the battlefield. Look at that. Artifacts, enchantments, and or tokens. It will let us sacrifice our creature tokens. I love this. We sack a bunch of creature tokens that are black and green. Savra causes a bunch of sacrifice. And then we're returning a bunch of creature cards from our graveyard to the battlefield that our opponents have already answered. Lich Knight's Conquest, excellent sacrifice. Rise of the Dark Realms action here, but sacrifice based and more on your side. And look, if we're running a card like Savra, a build around, you're going to want to consider this for any of the 3 commanders in this video. Get some protection. You need some protection on there. All 3 of these builds that we looked at today are pretty built around the commander itself. You're always going to want protection for your commander. Boots here just represents whatever you can afford to put in 2 or 3 good pieces of protection for your commander, especially if you're completely built around the synergies that that commander represents. I like boots. On the budget side, look for anything that has hexproof. You could also look at commander's plate if you want to go a little more bling with it. Just protection for your commander that will let your deck do its thing. Hitting that subscribe button does more than you could possibly imagine to help out the channel. And like I said, let me know in the comments what strategy or commander or creature type or set or plane or whatever you want to see a 3 ways to build video based around, and I'll see if I can get to it. Huge shout out to our sponsors again, Card Conduit, TCG Player, Dragon Shield, and Moxfield. Other than that, I'm tapped out. Talk to you later.